It was supposed to be scheduled, so it wasn't supposed to like start immediately. Well, that's annoying. Alright. Where's all my stuff? So, live painting. Coming on. Enjoy yourselves. Where all my stuff is. I don't remember where I moved stuff. I'm less excited. There we go. Ink. Very important. Gotta get water. Hang on. Alright, little crazy people. How's it going? Working on some art and stuff. Prepare yourself to be amazed completely. Or partially entertained at least. You say.
Quiet time, little guy.
I'm working on this. My beautiful wife is playing a video game.
If it's too loud, let me know.
It's all good. Sending out some stuff first so that y'all can have friends to hang out with while I paint. Hi. But yeah, so I got this idea for this painting that I want to do. Hi, I'm Joss Blake. As you well know, I am a painter. I'm the painter for this channel. Hi, how's it going? Yeah, no, I'm working on a piece, but I need to share it a couple places first. So, give me a second. Then we'll get her all going, as it were. The funny thing about doing this is I know people who are less happy when I do it this way, but like it is what it is at this point. So I'm just kind of gonna let it be as it is and work on some artwork. I saved a bunch of images that I wanted to do artwork off of. I thought it was interesting because a lot of times artists kind of get grief about not all coming up from the head. I think the concept of always needing to be completely and utterly original all the time is a part of what we do, but I don't think being inspired by something means that you're doing something that is unoriginal. Like, that's not how I think it works. So if you're under the impression that that's how it works, I feel like that's very sad for you. I don't know. There's good work. There's good and great work to be found all over that's inspiring, and it doesn't have to feel like you're not eligible for creativity or whatever. Because I don't agree with it. I think if I see something that's really interesting to me, and then I want to make my interpretation of it, and then expound upon it, I'm gonna, and that's how it goes. You know, it's not. So I got my semi ink, a couple drops on there, and then we begin as we do. So I hope everybody's well. I hope everybody is having these kind of better weeks than they were the day before, and perhaps even later on as time goes by, even better so then. My wife's birthday is actually coming up this week. It's So we're gonna do some fun stuff for her birthday. And a couple weeks later, my birthday's coming up. And I don't really know what we're gonna do, but it should be interesting anyways. Oh, hey, how's it going? Hi. I think in a lot of ways to be the first to do something sometimes is scarier than to be the last person to try to perfect it in a lot of ways. I think art is one of those things that you do and you take a lot of chances with it, but I think a lot of things are kind of like that in a way that if you're not willing to kind of put yourself out there, you're inevitably going to just kind of freak out and at the opportunity to try to do anything. So you just gotta kind of go for it. So in my line of work, I go for it. I think in a lot of ways, many people just kind of they're not willing to take those chances, you know? You have to be willing to take those chances to let the world kind of see what thought processes you have going on about everything. I liked this one. The reason I picked this specific piece was I thought I could do some interesting things with color, and I also thought I could do some interesting things with kind of weird little ideas I have with art stuff. So we're using this as like a very base model, and then we're just kind of going from there. I really like how dark her skin is in this. Like the fact that her hair and her skin kind of blend in with the shadows is really kind of interesting to me. I like the straight lines of it, the way it kind of shoots and goes. Hola, how's it going? It kind of reminds me of like a Bride of Frankenstein type feel to it, which is always interesting to me. I've always loved like that type of representation, I guess, in a lot of ways of like the way they do stuff with women and some stuff. So to me, it's just always been really interesting. So it's kind of what I'm working on. And then I just kind of disappear into everything after a certain point. I think a large sum of art is really kind of meant to, I don't know, change and be a part as it goes. If that makes any sense. Probably doesn't. But I don't know. So this is a question I get a lot, so I'll clarify this. So I use Sumi ink for these when I start. And I do kind of hottish water and then more kind of cold water. The cold water, a lot of times when you're doing like ink washes, more kind of sets the tone for the shadowing. And the hot more kind of melts it a little better so that it does the things you want it to do. And then because you're doing an ink wash, you can, I guess in a lot of ways, kind of mess around, as it were, with stuff, and it has like no control or constriction to what you want to do. So, I don't know. It is how it is. It's always interesting to me. So yeah, if you have any questions or anything for me, just write them in the thing. I'll look up every once in a while so I can give you like a clear, defined answer of any type. But I'm not gonna be completely looking up while this is going on, as you could guess. because I've got all this other stuff I gotta do. But I do love the way, I don't know, I like the way you can kind of build a painting with just, I think like the initial lines are important, but after a certain point, like you gotta figure out a way to do your imagery do like here more than anything else. So yeah, like I said, the cold gives you kind of a bit of a wash, so you can get kind of those lighter tones, and then when it kind of melts while you're painting it, so you just have to kind of play with little things to get a lot of these tones, and then you have to kind of let it dry a little bit and go from there. I think the interesting thing for a lot of this stuff is like there is a lot of waiting that goes on with it. So if you're an impatient person, this technique will probably drive you crazy. But I don't know. I love doing stuff with inks and watercolors. I think they're just fun. I don't know. They've got all these little kind of things you can do once you've developed whatever it is you're trying to work on. You know? I do love that like these are kind of nuts. Like the shadow on this is so strong that it's just interesting. I do feel like there's no such thing as like white when it comes to this stuff. I mean, in general, I don't think there's anything as far as white goes. There's just kind of, if you understand like the color wheel and how stuff works, like it's not really a thing. And it definitely doesn't work as far as like technique goes. But you also have to kind of be careful that you don't overwork sometimes the paper, because this is like a really good, expensive like watercolor, not watercolor, watercolor paper. So you have to kind of let it chill and soak in for a sec, let it dry. If you pull too much, it kind of does a thing. So for the most part, I just kind of let it sit and chill, and then I try and figure out all the other things that I want to do with the image. And yeah, I just think it's cool. I think it is interesting in my own way, so to speak. But yeah. I'm just kind of, I think one of the things about art that people don't oftentimes think about is there's a lot of like waiting for ink to dry. And that's like a very integral part of doing everything. But if you time it right and you figure out what you want to do, you can work on other parts, let other parts dry. I've always tried to kind of do that with most of what I do. So let this guy dance for a sec while I search for my things. I think the interesting thing about like hair like this is it's always kind of free-forming, moving around. So you can, if you understand like curl patterns and stuff like that, you can kind of screw around with it and give like a little more kind of textures to it. I'm more one of those people who like plays with the idea. I like to dry brush a lot when I want to do like tiny details and stuff. I'm not one of those people who believes in the idea of like, well, that's just like scratchiness or whatever. Because I think like the way you perceive it is oftentimes like you want to be able to perceive a texture with your eyes a little. And with that, like you have to realize that like there are lines that need to change as far as the weight. I always think it's funny because like I know a lot of people who do digital art, and like with digital art, there's a lot of like kind of feeling in how you do certain things as far as like textures and colors and stuff like that. So I always try and think about that a little bit, just in the way that I don't know, you make art. To me, it's very interesting. It may not be that interesting to anybody else. I don't know, but I'm I don't know. I'm a big thing. I'm a big person about that. I love I love to make my lines hold weight. That's what I do. So I've got all these ideas on what I want to do as far as this. I know what this is going to be. It'll be a lot of colors, a lot of textures, but I want her to have like a very rich tone to her. So I gotta let that dry for a little bit. And I don't really want to introduce any kind of like wetness or color to this part just yet because it'll kind of bleed in. And I'm not quite where that needs to go just yet. So I'm just letting it dry. A technique sometimes I use is like a press method. So if you press it, it gives you a little more kind of texture. So you can do another layer if you need to. But the only problem I ever see with the text method is depending on what you're doing it with, it leaves kind of a pressure on the like an impression on whatever you're doing it on. So you have to be kind of prepared for that. And of course I have cats, so then there's the whole aspect of getting cat hair everywhere. But you know. Things can't be perfect all the time, guys. And honestly, if we were looking for perfection, you've kind of come to the wrong place. It's not really something I look for when I make art. I think the human body is very interesting, but it's also kind of complicated.
Not till like 10. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So there's that. But like I love the idea of just kind of leaving spots and then coming back and doing textures. It has a lot of kind of wild little implications to it. And I love me some wild implications. For those who want to know how the show went, the show was good. The show was good. I wish there had been a little more people, but oh well. I mean, that's fine. It was fun, which is really kind of all I want when I do shows. I want to have a good time, which I did. I get to meet a whole bunch of cool artists, and we did all types of fun stuff. So that was nice. But it was definitely one of those things where, like, I I don't know. I showed up. I had a good time. So I'm gonna let that. I gotta let this dry quite a bit, actually. I think. Otherwise, I'm gonna ruin this paper. These are those moments where I wish I had like a fan or a dryer or something. I could just kind of blow these things on there. But for right now, it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's enough. It's enough. So how's everyone? You doing well? I'm trying to do more live streams like this because you guys really seem to like them. I'm always worried putting ink on my face. You guys really like them, so I'm trying to get better about kind of more. I wish I'd made her nose a little bigger, like her nostrils. Her nose a little bigger, but I think she's good, honestly. I think this will be really interesting when it dries because it's gonna have like this super kind of crazy layering, black and white and gray type of stuff. Because you think because it's on really dark right now that it's gonna stay that way, but because it's your ink washing, so that's when you add water, you kind of dilute, and then you paint with that. It's probably going to have like this really interesting kind of mask across it with the colors. I love when it does that. It's just the most interesting thing to me. I don't know that I have anything in stock right now that's going to really give you that explanation. So this is what I did last week, just to give you an idea. So, like the way that it masks and layers. Typically, I like it to be a little stronger than that, but it's kind of how this one turned out, which I'm still pretty happy about. But yeah, it's what it is. You do what you do. But yeah, I met this cool photographer who's just a nice guy. And we had a long discussion about art and what we think art is and what it means and all this stuff. And I was pretty happy about it. I thought it was pretty cool. It was nice to have like a weird art conversation with an artist I didn't know about like the state of art, the way artists look at themselves when you're trying to figure out whether you're trying to compromise what you think is creative versus what you think will sell. That whole thing in a weird way. But it's fun, you know? It's fun. Side note, thank you to everyone who's joined the channel. Like, that's just so badass. We're getting closer and closer to 1,000,000, which is nice. I think we've got maybe around like almost 420. So that's pretty chill. Everybody, drink some water. Take a break, if you will. Come on. And yeah, yeah. Hydration is a big deal. Gotta stay hydrated. Also, don't put your water near your ink water. Horrible mistakes happen. I normally put it in something that has a screw top so I won't accidentally ever take a sip of like this. It happens it's happened too many times in my life at this point. And I'm not interested in continuing said traditions. I want to add like textures in the lighter spots. So I gotta find the right brush for that. Because I don't want to... That'll work. It's a real thin guy. I don't want anything in a different way than what I'm trying to do as far as line work goes. So I find like these super crazy, like long brushes have a tendency to give me the line quality I'm looking for. And I try to do like my own little textures and whatnot inside of these because I think they're a little more interesting. I used to call them like my tide pools. And it was kind of like this thing that I did forever. I didn't start using brushes when I did it. Initially, I just used like pens. And although that was fun, I thought like it would look a little more uniformed if I started doing it in the same exact way that I was doing everything else. So that's why I started doing them this way. They were always kind of fun. This is kind of one of those things where you have to make sure you let it dry enough. Because if it's not all dry, it'll just kind of smear, which is depressing. You can make up for it, but it's just you don't really have to if you're careful about it. But it's all like technique, honestly. Like people think about style, and I'm like, style's just kind of like your technique once you've decided to be like okay with however you make things. Like if you confidently draw 4 or 5 fingered people, then like that's your style. You do it enough, like you've created a movement of 5 finger weirdos. I guess we have 5 fingers, so that's not a good example. 3 fingered painting things. It's kind of like Coon or Keen. Sorry, Keen. Keen used to draw like these crazy bug-eyed people, and that was her style, and she just did them. And so if she did it enough, people were like, oh my god, she started a whole movement. And you're like, yeah, that's what I did. In actuality, like you're just like, this is the only way I know how to draw. This is how I do things. This is my style. That's kind of cool. It's all about textures, you know? Oh, hello, Diane Evans Blake. Hello to you. And a very happy carnival to you also, madam. But yeah, you kind of go for it. You do all this stuff. You make things kind of pop and go certain ways. I'm also not afraid to like keep layering things when I want them to do a certain thing. Like I think those are kind of important. To not be afraid to, like I said, make a mess, man. Make a mess. It's important. Messiness is close to somethingness. But yeah, I just love how you can kind of play with certain things and make them really kind of explosive at the same time. Like I said, there's no such thing as like white when you're doing this. The only thing you can really kind of do is like you play with grays and you kind of bring the grays into different layers.
All right, let's go, Wendy.
So yeah, we're gonna have to wait a while to let this dry, sadly. So once again, water break. Let's do this. Yeah. So what's everybody up to? Are you like my family? Are you celebrating Carnival? Are you running around? Are you doing whatever? I have been busy getting ready for, well, we did the show. And like I said, the show was good. It was a lot more stressful getting ready for it than it was than the show itself was at all. Like the show itself was just kind of a bunch of artists were there and a bunch of people were there and they looked at art and the art director asked a really cool question of which is your favorite piece to random people, and when they said what they wanted, then she had like snacks and stuff and they could eat that. So it was kind of cool to see like little kids get really involved with the art was going on. In the meantime, I'm still working on all of these guys. So where I do artworks of all types and whatnot, and find myself kind of focusing on these strange little textures in weird little bits, but they make sense, you know? They make sense in a lot of ways. They remind me of like when I went to Carnival, all the times that I had shown up, because I was busy. What in the world? I was so busy making noise that I didn't realize how much fun it was to just kind of dance and have a great time. And a lot of really good food too, which is kind of strange. Only on the factor of like you just I don't know, I think that's the thing. People who've never like been to any of these types of things don't realize like the food is the main event. Like the partying and the dancing and whatnot is definitely up there, but like if you've never had food at a big festival like this, like man, you're missing out. It'll change your life. It'll change your whole life. So we're waiting for that to dry. I'm gonna work on one of these real quick. I've been trying to make it a point to do at least one square a day, which I have not been able to keep up with. So I'm gonna try and make up for it tonight and do a couple, as they are kind of these intricate little weird things that I make, but I like them because they feel really honest. I don't know. Artwork is kind of one of those things that you can't really fake your way past. Like you're either gonna make it or you're gonna sit down, be quiet, and let somebody else kind of work on what they want to do. I think I know too many artists throughout my life who've been trying to like make work but not make art. If that makes any sense to the rest of you. Like you just kind of have to make make your art beyond the ideas of like whether it's suitable or whether it's digestible or whether it's any of these things that like people assume other people's art is meant to be. Like it needs to be like really consumable. Oh, what's up, Doc? Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you like it. I think I don't know, man. I think it's kind of one of those things where, like I said, art has this quality to it where you can kind of make stuff. And if you don't get caught up in the idea of like consumerism, essentially, you'll find that you just really like making stuff. You like making stuff, it's not about anything else. um, and you just kind of let it go. You'll find this peace in making artwork that just doesn't have anything to do with selling anything or getting likes or anything of that nature. Not to say that I don't want you guys to buy anything of mine or or like this video or subscribe to my channel or join my Patreon or any of those things. I would totally love that. That would be amazing. I think that's deeply important. But I feel like a lot of this stuff, like, it doesn't have to be about just that. I feel like a lot of art doesn't have to be just that. We are meant to be able to make things and simply just enjoy them and enjoy making them. So I'd rather be in pursuance of that at this point in my life. Like I'm desperately chasing the idea of having a happy life. And maybe, you know, for some people that sounds a little hippie-ish or extreme, but why not, you know? What does it hurt? What does it hurt anyone for you to enjoy yourself at what you do for fun? And, you know, if you're lucky, you get to the point where you get to make some profit out of it. But I don't know. The fun part's kind of more important to me at this point in time in my life than worrying when I'm creating something whether or not I'm going to sell these things. It's like I fill up so many of these, and the concept of trying to sell them doesn't it doesn't play a factor in making these pages. These pages are just something I enjoy doing all the time. What's up, man? I see that art sticker you like. I see by that the Attack on Titan, this one. That I like anime. Yeah, I like anime a little bit. I mean, I definitely don't love it the way some people love it. I know people out there who are like diehards, and they know the names of people, they know the names of characters, they know the songs, they've taught themselves Japanese, they've done all these things. When I was a kid, I went to a private school. My mom sent me to a private school called Brisbane Academy. And when I was there, my first year, this guy named Mark, he was like a army guy, taught us Japanese. So I know a little bit of Japanese, but I didn't really know anything about anime until I got like into high school for the most part. Like it just wasn't one of those things that kind of came about. And at that point, it was like trash anime. We didn't know about like Mizaki and Spirited Away and Akira and all that stuff. Like we didn't know any of that stuff. We'd never seen any of those things. So like it took us a long time before we got to the point where we got to really kind of experience every inch of anime and stuff. So I always think it's just fun to kind of, I don't know. I think I just really like stickers more than I even like anime. As that has worked out. Have you ever seen Ghost in the Shell? Yes. Very good anime actually. The art in the original movie is out of this world, and I usually don't like anime, and I'm super picky because some anime can be a little cheesy. It's true. This is true. Let me see what I was saying. High schoolers fighting monsters types of cheesy, low, but Ghost in the Shell and Perfect Blue were different. I can see how you feel that way. I think the funny thing that I've run across is the animation has definitely got to be really important. As an artist, I can't watch something that I think is ugly. I just can't. I can't get past it. Maybe I've just been painting for so long and been an artist for so long that I'm like very picky about stuff like that. But it's just kind of how that works out for me. Like I don't even get involved with, I don't get involved with art expressions that I don't like. And I mean that works as far as like everyday art in paintings and books and canvases and stuff like that, but also in the entertainment stuff that I take in. But I've seen a lot of really good art that's simple. I mean, simple is not a disqualifier for it. But I think knowing what you like and then figuring out how you can consume that is like a really difficult thing sometimes, because like we used to have to do like torrents to watch all this stuff. Like there were no anime shops or DVD places or stuff like that. Like in our minds we were like, we'll just order a bunch of stuff, and it's like, yeah, but there wasn't anywhere to order anything. So we trade like cassette tape, like not cassette tapes, VHS tapes of all the stuff. Do you enjoy movies as real? Ever get any inspiration from movies, real movies as well? Yeah, I mean, but not the ones people would expect. Like I like really stylized, kind of crazy movies. Like I've always really liked the style of Wes Anderson, even if I didn't always like the movies of Wes Anderson. Like the stylized thing that he keeps with it is very interesting to me. I like a lot more kind of like indie stuff, to be honest, because I feel like the stories are sometimes they're unpredictable, sometimes they're not unpredictable at all. But sometimes they're really, really kind of funny how they take these turns, if you will. So, yes, There's a lot of movies and stuff I'll be in the middle of watching, and then I want to create something and make stuff off of it. Many years ago, I made a painting for this video on it on my channel. I made a painting for a James Baldwin movie that I watched, If Beale Street Could Talk. And I was just so inspired by it that I had to make a piece that kind of went in that direction. A lot of times though, when I'm like inspired by something, it's more like it hits me and then I feel like I need to make a specific something in a certain way, but not really necessarily involving the actual topic that's in the thing. Like I watch Star Wars, I don't want to make Star Wars movie. I don't want to make Star Wars art, but I find it interesting to kind of go in like a weird, I don't know, you give yourself more kind of imaginary license to do stuff when you allow yourself to kind of, I don't know, bleed through the page, so to speak. I find it easier a lot of times with books. Like I'll read a book and then while I'm reading a book, I want to stop and paint something because it's like such a vivid image in my brain, and like I'll just kind of imagine these places that it'll go. Let me see. Cronenberg inspired art would be crazy. Yeah, that sounds hideous. Videodrome was strange, but I liked the way it made you feel uncomfortable. That I feel like that's a you thing. I wonder if there is an art that could convey the same feelings. I mean, look at Giger, look at, I'm trying to think, Junji Ito, look at stuff like that. Like those are like horror type arts that kind of had like crazy pull your face off type things, images and whatnot. Do you still have any pieces inspired by movies around? I have so much art in this small little area, but yeah, give me a sec. I'll find something. I gotta look in the pot. I gotta look in the recent pile, and I'll see if I see anything that kind of feels that way. I mean, on a very silly version, I did like a Doom Adventure Time piece years ago, so that was kind of fun. A lot of mixed media, a lot of silly stuff. This isn't necessarily what I mean when I say that, but it's the first thing I saw, so I was like, yeah, all right. Let me see. Things that feel inspired by other art. Let me see. Okay, here's two. So, I was watching Gurren Lagann. I'm not trying to say it. It's an anime. So I did that one for like a little poster that we did years ago that came out, and that did really well. The first piece reminds you of MF Doom because it's an MF Doom piece. And then the second one, this one, is we watched the new Batman movie a while back with Zoe Kravitz, and she was Catwoman, and what was his name? Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson was Batman. And I liked the style of the movie. The movie was okay, but I really liked the visual style of it. So I kind of did like a piece that I was working on that felt kind of like a Batman, Catwoman type wild style type of thing that I was working on. So I did that, and that was fun. I don't know. There's so much work that I've done throughout the decades that I'm not sure what would fall under that anymore. I watched Candyman a while back, and like that inspired me in a couple of ways to do some weird work. I started kind of looking at like weird imageries kind of packed together. So I did kind of that idea. I think it's more kind of like Candyman meets like Fantastic Mr. Fox, if that makes any sense. It's a weird thing to put together, but like if you know me, it's not as weird as you would think. like 1950s noir, but somewhat somehow still modern. Oh, for the Catwoman one, yeah, a little bit. I mean, that's kind of that's kind of how it works sometimes, you know. The things come together in the ways that they do, and you are a passenger on that road, as it were. So as you see, like now it's got a little more weight as far as the what it looks like. So now I can do some more layers because the name of the game is to do layers. Because I really love doing these like weird little pieces that have all this stuff going on. So yeah, we just kind of wait and we just keep adding layers to it. You're never content with kind of how you're doing it until it's perfect. And if that means you got to do layers for a couple days, you do that. If it means you got to do layers for kind of just a couple going down, doing it, then that's how you do it. That looks cool. It felt like the colors flow into each other really well. Thank you. That's really cool. I appreciate you saying that. Would you ever visit a place and set up a little art board like Bob Ross and just start painting the landscapes or the cityscapes? I've never really been a landscape cityscapes guy. I have gone out and just painted and made like a whole show of it, but it gets kind of awkward to be completely honest. And there's always, I don't know. I like the solitude sometimes of painting. People not trying to get in the way of what you're making to like lean into what you're seeing. It's a straight, I don't know, it's one of those things like when you first start off as an artist, like you're surrounded by people and so people will see it, you do that, and then once you kind of done it enough, you realize like some people realize that like they really like making art when no eyes are on them. Physical eyes are on them. And then, you know, you kind of grow out of that too at the same time. Like I can paint in front of a crowd. I can do a live painting in front of a crowd. I can do a live painting online. I can do it. All these things. It just kind of depends, honestly. It depends on the mood. It's harder to do it, obviously, when it's cold outside. If that's the answer. It would be real cool to visit more actual ruins and try to recreate that, but I don't have the skills for that. I mean, I don't think that's true. I think there's a skill level you have that's probably really good at that. You just have to kind of unlock it first, if that makes any sense. I've never had a passion for landscapes, sadly. I don't know. Like, I remember being in art school and them trying to get us to do it and make it and do all these things. And I just I didn't enjoy that part. And I wasn't bad at it. I was fairly decent at it, but what you're not passionate about, you're just not passionate about. Like things It's just kind of how that works sometimes. I think if you really want to get good at it, just go out and keep doing it. You don't have to show anybody if you don't want to, but you can just get a sketchbook, get real ugly with it, get real expressive with it. Learn different styles to paint in, and then try them in different art styles to draw in, and try them in those. Like maybe you're a better surrealist abstract painter than you are a classical uh, realist painter. So maybe you wouldn't do landscapes in realism. Maybe you do them more in gestures. Maybe you do them more in colors. I did this one piece a decade ago now at this point, where I did a backdrop for a play, and I did it in a way that it looked like a landscape from a rainy window. So you're seeing it, but the rain is hitting it, so it's slightly kind of meh. And it turned out really well. So, you find a skill that you didn't know you had. I think it's interesting that art that no one can see, the idea that art that no one can see, it's just your artwork. You don't have to share it if you don't want to. What if you made art with a blindfold on and locked it away and put it into a time capsule so not even the artist can see his work? I mean, that's an interesting concept. Who would eventually see it, though? Are you thinking like the world sees it in like 100 years, 10, 15 years? How does that? What I guess the question would be like, what audience? Who's the audience for that? Would be the thing. I think it'd be interesting. I mean, people probably would have paid for Picasso to do something like that, where he just made some crazy art with his eyes closed, just kind of went and did it, or Pollock or somebody, and then put it away. I guess the question would be, would that, I guess because of their name, that would be a piece of artwork that they made, and it would be recognized as so, but I don't know. I don't know that they would be happy about with it. You know what I mean? Like if you have a designated style that you like about your artwork, and then you're making a bunch of gestures blindfolded, hoping that you're kind of ending in some type of way that feels like you. Do you ever get to see it as the artist? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's a fun concept. I think you make it into a weird TV show where you get a bunch of artists to paint something blindfolded, and then like a season of it, and then and then the artist have to pick the art and then say, well, I probably painted this. And the person who gets it right gets a prize or something with a couple of different artworks. Some are theirs, and they have to figure out what they were trying to draw and whatnot. I mean, it'd be an interesting kind of reality TV show. I don't know who would watch it. I think it's kind of the main thing. I think for this is one of those scenarios where like you're trying to do it for an audience, so it's kind of one of the. It's less like just the artist doing it for the sake of making art. But it's an interesting concept, I gotta say. It took me on a tangent, so if you can figure out a way to get it going, man, go for it. That'd be interesting. I'd watch. I'd at least watch a YouTube show about it. I'm not sure who would be the audience. I just feel like if the artist makes art they can't see, in a way, he would be painting with his soul rather than his eyes. Ooh, look at you. Look at you, my friend. Just bringing them. No, you don't agree. My wife gave you a hard thumbs down. I'm sorry. Um, no, I understand what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying. That's a very beat poet way to look at it. But it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know how that comes about. It's a fascinating concept, though. You should definitely be like a writer for some of these things. No one steal, no one steals stars' ideas. These are gold. I like these. These are interesting. I'll do what people do to me at art shows. What else you got? What else you got? And you're like, I mean, I'm giving you stuff right now. You don't need to ask me for more. That's crazy. But it's just, I don't know. That's interesting. That's an interesting concept. I do wonder. Like I said, I would be. It would be really hard pressed. It feels like something somebody does like on a retreat or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you go on like an artist retreat. They get you to do a bunch of stuff, probably ayahuasca, and then you and then you paint these things and they're blind and they're just put away. And I don't know, I'm a chaotic person in a way with some of the thoughts I have. So like part of me would be on the lines of like you get to see what you did and then you take that piece and you throw it in a fire before you leave, so people are like, and then I release you, you're done, type of thing. But that's more just because I like to kind of see people shrieking in pain about stuff like that. Let me see. Well, if I made a bunch of scribbles, I'll use that line to get my painting sold. I mean, it's a solid way to go, man. It's a solid way to go. No one can tell you it's a bad idea unless it doesn't work. And even then, maybe you're just before your time. You maybe like Van Gogh. Like he didn't really sell anything while he was alive. I think he sold one painting, and I think it was for a meal. And now he's freaking genius, and he has all these fans and all that stuff. But it's that whole aspect of your great idea may not be great right now, but it could be great later. Like that banana that's sold in the for millions. I hate that banana so much. That banana's so stupid. The guy took it off the wall, ate it, and then took a different banana and then duct taped it to a wall. Like after he had like people had seen it for so long, he was like, "Yeah, it started to turn," so he took it off and then he ate it and then he put a new one there. Just obnoxious, just straight up obnoxious. He's just trolling people at that point. But it's interesting. I mean, it's definitely a very fascinating idea to think that you could kind of do something so obscure and that stuff. But then that goes into the whole thing before. Like, are you making art because you're passionate about it? Or are you making art because you think solution? Are you making art because you think it'll sell? Because I think the art that's made because you think it's going to sell is different than the art that you make because you're passionate about it. Just to say. But maybe passionate about making money. Maybe that's what it is. Let me see. You know what movie is really cool? I do not. The American Friend is about an artist scamming and pretending to be dead so he can sell art at a higher price. That is kind of brilliant. I have to admit. Faking your own death so your art goes up in value is beautiful. Chef's kiss. Uh, and the framer notices that it's not real and it becomes a whole thing. That's so crazy. That's so crazy. I always think of like Art School Confidential, where like the kid becomes famous because they think he's a serial killer, but the actual serial killer died and burned his whole apartment down by accident with a cigarette. But because he has that artist who killed the serial killer. I'm spoiling this movie for you so bad, and I'm sorry. He basically the kid gets framed. That's the gist of it. I won't spoil the whole thing. The kid gets framed, and so him selling all this art and becoming the most famous artist of his generation is based off of a lie that he might be a serial killer. So it's kind of strange, and he's like in jail, completely innocent, but in jail, and they think it's him. So it's kind of thing. What's that movie called? Art School Confidential. John Malkovich is in it. He makes horrible artwork in that movie, which is sad because I think John Malkovich is actually a painter also, and he may also make horrible artwork. So it's kind of that weird thing where people think if you're talented in one thing, you're probably talented at like all things. But in actuality, like you're very good at one thing and you focused your life on it, and everything else you kind of do is more like your hobbies. Or maybe you're good at a lot of things. I don't know. Maybe you're great at a lot of things. No way. I love John Malkovich. I'm definitely gonna watch that. Good, good. It's one of my favorite movies. It's a full blown mess. That's the best way to describe it. It definitely felt like art school in a lot of ways for me because it was just so insane, and you definitely meet quite a few people who are just weirdly toxic for no reason, and so it felt true in that aspect because I definitely knew some people who were just kind of objectively a mess who were in art school who had no reason to be that way. They seemed kind of content with being uh, nuts, basically. And, they were rewarded in some ways about it. They definitely got some interesting kind of perspectives and cheering in some ways from other artists because they were weird. I definitely had like I had a few people that I remember from art school who were just kind of like that. Like they had no reason that they were doing that they were kind of as popular as they were. I remember meeting a couple of artists that I was like kind of blown away with that they were as popular as they were when they were already famous artists, and like I saw their work and had conversations with them, and they were they were definitely talented and they deserved the accolades they got, but like when I looked at some of the work that they made, I was like, I can make that. I can totally make that. There's an artist I met. I'll just blow up the spot. I don't care. There was an artist I met called Paul Pope. Paul Pope was a comic book artist. Paul Pope, insanely inventive, creative, massively talented man. But he draws his own face for every character. It's his face, and then it's slightly a little different. Just a little. He'll do the eyelashes a certain way, or the face shape a certain way, so that it's a lady. But it's still just his face. He does characters who are different races, and he still kind of just draws his own face. Like it was kind of one of those things. Like maybe the forehead's a little bulkier, or maybe the nostrils are a little different. But like his mouth is in everything. His eyes are in everything. Like here and here are there, and it gave me the perspective of these things that you're caught up about that you think are really difficult to draw as an artist are not really that hard to do. You just have to be kind of confident about just doing them. Like it gave me this wild perspective on like how you how you make everything, you know? How all this stuff kind of comes together and becomes this idea. Where did I put that? I had to like move everything a couple of days ago because we needed to do some things with the studio that were outside of the studio. And so I moved everything into kind of like little separate directions. And now I'm trying to remember where I put all of it. Because I don't know where everything is anymore. Oh no, his arm broke off. Well, that sucks. Oh well. Broke right off. That sucks. That's gotta hurt too. I can probably, it's a candle, so I can probably fix that actually. If I just use heat, I can probably fix that. But yeah, apparently I ripped Buddha's arm off, so, oh wow. Apparently I ripped my candle Buddha that I had for decades arm off. So, I didn't realize until just now. I was in the middle. I put him away because that guy was coming through. So it was out of the way. And then I guess I didn't realize what I did. Broke his little wax arm off. Oh well. Nope, still didn't work. Oh well. Well, sometimes you lose things, kids. Oh well. It's made of wax and it's like 30 years old, so it is what it is. Um, but yeah, it was just kind of interesting how you learn to make art in the styles that you do and the ways that you do, and then you realize as time goes by, you're not really trapped in those ways anymore. You can make art however you make art. It's not a requirement to create in the styles that other people created. So I don't anymore. I make however I want to make because that's kind of important to me, to be the artist that I am and not the artist that somebody else is. It's not required to be somebody else's version of me as an artist. Maybe some of it is networking and nepotism. A lot of it is networking and nepotism. I mean, the sad truth about a lot of things are networking and nepotism are typically how a lot of things that you don't necessarily understand that get made because of networking and nepotism. They are they are strongly a part of one another. And there's, coming to that reality is sometimes difficult, but it is true though. Yes, this is a toothbrush for the record. As my wife pointed out a while back, this was one of our toothbrushes. And I cleaned it and I used it, and now sometimes I paint with it. And I like that aspect of it. I like that, the trash of one is the useful treasure of another. Of course, like in my persistence of trying to make things and do things, I didn't realize like it was directly in front of me, and I just didn't see it. But I plan on replacing this desk eventually. My wife and I were looking at a piece that would really work really well in this space. And then I was going to replace these guys that I've had for probably 12 years. These little plastic guys. For something a bit more kind of smoother that works, it sits above it. And yeah. For a long time, I did a lot of acrylic for a long time, and then I kind of broke away from that, and then I did just ink. And then before that, I did like pencil. It took me a long time to get comfortable with the idea of like not accepting that anything could be a mistake anymore. Because that's kind of the hard part of making art, realizing that like every moment of everything is a little more left up to possibility. What if you don't want to network and go hang out at the time and you're only interested in making art? Then I think you already figured out what we all want to do. I mean, most of us, we make art so that we can do stuff, so that one day we can be financially secure enough that we can just keep making art. We don't have to worry about selling things anymore. I mean, that's my dream. To be so financially independent via my artwork that I never have to sell art ever again. I can just give it away if I want, or my wife probably won't let me give it away at that point, but it's just, there's something beautiful about that, to not be beholden to capitalism. Because, like, we don't do this for capitalism. We do this because we like to make art. It almost sounds like it would be designed to keep established artists and potentially competitors away from the big gigs. Yeah. I mean, a problem that's happened in my field of like mural work and stuff is there are a lot of very wealthy people now who've gotten into painting murals and stuff in my local area, and they will underprice their stuff, if not give it away for free, which is kind of ironic because that's kind of, now that I say it out loud, being angry with them for doing what I would like to do seems kind of silly. But I don't know, man. The rest of us are struggling out here. These people have never struggled. I guess it's probably the issue. So for them to come along and then take away opportunities kind of sucks. I don't know if there's a good answer to that. I don't know if there are good answers to any of this stuff. Sometimes they just exist. Who's to say? I think the concept of creativity and capitalism being intertwined is a mistake. But I think it's a mistake everybody makes. I think as you become an artist and you do all these things, you try to figure out how to best make your art, but at the same time, how to continue to be able to make your art. Because none of this stuff is free. I mean, I've been lucky enough that I've had sponsors, art sponsors from art companies that have donated materials to me on occasion. So some of this stuff has been, but even that, I don't know if when you've established yourself and you start to kind of get these freebies, that's technically even like free, because like you had to do all the work to establish yourself in order to get these things. Instead of being paid in money, you're being paid in products. So I don't know. And in a way it kind of helps them. So it's not really free because you have to give them like a review on a website in some way. I can definitely understand that maybe that's why guys like Van Gogh didn't get recognized while he was still alive. Well, they thought his art was bad. I mean, specifically for him, they thought his art was bad. Like during his time, Expressionism was not the style. He was, I mean, for him specifically, like a lot of his paintings aren't any bigger than this. Their realism was very much the thing at the time in France and in Holland and all that stuff. So he was kind of born at the wrong time for his artwork. It wasn't appreciated. I mean, I know he wanted to be, but that's kind of how it worked out. I mean, Frida Kahlo only ever had like, I think 2 shows ever. She only had 1 show in Mexico. So, let me see. What if you lived in a world where the only thing that existed was cubism and charcoal paintings? Would you still do art? I mean, I think whether your art is considered art, it's still art. I mean, I'm not a big fan of cubism. I gotta be honest. I think cubism, in a lot of ways, is, some of it's very ugly. Some of it is beautiful. Charcoal drawings can be interesting. Very messy. I think I would still make art, but I don't know that I would be considered a good artist by those standards. But, you know, maybe later I'd be considered a good artist, as it were. It's kind of one of those things, like, you can't really predict how these things come about. There's so many artists who made stuff that was really beautiful and they got acknowledged for it later. But in their lifetime, they never saw thumbs up or any type of stuff. A lot of it is very ugly. They have a section in the MoMA for it. It was like a horror show. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely like become, I remember studying art in art school, and then I remember like coming back to studying art later on in life. And it was one of those things where not all stuff was really good. I mean, I've noticed like the stuff coming out of like northern Africa during the time of like Picasso's height was very good. He didn't come up with the idea of abstract art. He It was very popular in Africa at the time, northern, and I'm told Western Africa, but I know Northern Africa specifically. It was considered really popular. There's some really amazing art that came out of it. Sadly, those are not the ones that got really famous, though. Picasso did thousands of paintings, so he's considered every genre he moved around, and he's considered like, oh my god, he brought eyes to it and stuff. But he wasn't the creator of any of it. So you like look at those artists who were struggling to get their work seen, and then he saw it and then kind of recreated his own versions of it. It, it was different. It was just different. Who's to say? Northern Africa. Where my dad's from. Tanzania. I hope I'm saying that right. They've been gorgeous beaches there. That's really cool. I've never looked at Tanzania before. Um, I mean, most of the time I've spent a lot of my life in the Caribbean and in Latin America. So a lot of the art that inspires me is art that not necessarily became museum art. And yeah, beautiful beaches, amazing food, beautiful textures and colors that you've never seen in other places. I imagine like parts of Northern Africa are very similar to that. It's just the colors and the scents and all these things that are so rich and beautiful and like from there and amazing. It's such a cool idea. Like I was talking to a friend of mine who I made today, Sam, and he was like, "You should travel the world, man, and see all these places." Like you're, I found out a couple years ago that my art was really popular in like New Zealand. He's like, "You should go." I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be cool. If I had money, I would. Maybe I will one day. Not right now. Not today, but one day. One day I'll go, and we will rock out and have a great time and make a lot of art and maybe some money. Maybe. Who knows?" Would you ever visit different countries to get inspired? I love how I'm answering these questions before you ask. Um, would you ever visit different countries to get inspired by their culture and art? Yeah, absolutely. I think I think you I think in America particularly because of the diverse communities, like you can kind of travel the world going a couple blocks over and be introduced to languages you never heard before and foods you never had before and color and costume and culture, and it's really inspiring. I just love it. Are you Caribbean? I am Caribbean, yes. I've got a sister in law from Guyana. That jerk chicken she makes is heavenly. Yeah, yeah. No, my father's family is from Trinidad. Trinidad is a slightly adjacent to Guyana. Actually, it's not directly above it, but it's in that little area, right on the top of South America. Let me see. And then jerk sauce in general is fire there. We eat a lot of things called like roti and doubles, and those are shared between Guyana and Trinidad. I've seen you seem like the type of guy who would enjoy New Zealand. I heard it's super zen there. Lord of the Rings was filmed there. My mother tells me all the time Lord of the Rings was filmed there. She's in love with that movie. She's in love with that series, the movies, the books, all of it. Only downside is the giant spiders. The giant spiders are terrifying. I'm not gonna lie. Trinidad had an ex from there. She broke my heart. Hmm. Yeah, no, that's relatable. Trinidad's rough. Trinidad can be rough sometimes. But my wife says all her exes live in Texas.
No, they don't.
No, and her sibling says no, they don't. So there you go.
How's it like?
Hello. How are you?
What are you doing?
Doing a live stream.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hello, peoples of the internet.
There you go. See, people.
Come to People's Book.
See, I know people,
You
and
do.
those people know people who sell books.
Yeah, free advertising.
There you go.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thank you. I'm working on some layers, so I got to keep kind of going back to it.
Looks cool.
Foreshadowing. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna do some stuff with it. I'm just kind of waiting. I wanted to kind of do like this.
Oh, hello. What is People's Book? People's Book is a bookstore in Tacoma Park where we do community events and we talk to cool people and we sell awesome books.
Just nerds. Just nerds.
Nerds
everywhere.
are the best people.
Nerds
though.
are the best people, though. I do have to admit.
I mean, art nerds.
If you want to know something fascinating, ask someone who knows something, and it's just amazing.
It's so cool.
You get exposed to like all these interesting kind of ideas and whatnot.
Yeah. Nerds are some of my favorite people. Especially when you talk about something you're really passionate about. Yeah.
I can't always agree with that, but
I don't know, hearing you talk about art is pretty cool.
She
Look
just
at all these people.
She just called me a nerd. You saw that. You're all witness.
She.
Sorry, they just called me a nerd. Upset.
Adding another gender now.
This is fair. Tacoma, is that like the West Coast? It's on the East Coast, actually, in Maryland.
Yes.
So adjacent to Washington, D.C., I guess would be the best way to describe it.
Well, now that I've co-opted your last stream, I'm going to leave.
All right.
Bye, folks.
We do things.
We do things.
We do things.
And stuff.
I should know that considering I'm from New Jersey. That doesn't mean, no, I mean, you don't have to know where a city is just because you're from a place, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know a lot of names of places in New Jersey. So if you were to say like a random place in New Jersey, I'd be like, where is that? And then they use the same names over and over again too. So, I mean, like we went to Portland and then I have to clarify that I mean Oregon and not Maine. So, and I think there's like a Tacoma, Washington also. But I don't think that's a city. Well, no, it's a city. I was going to say it's a state. And it's like, no, Washington's a state. Tacoma's a city. So, yeah, it's interesting. Ever visited New York? Many times. A lot of my family's from New York. Brooklyn, actually. I have a few art teachers, and they all live in Brooklyn and in Queens for some reason. I mean, it used to be an affordable place to live, so I know that's probably why a lot of people used to live there. I knew a lot of people lived in Harlem. I knew a lot of people lived in Queens, the Bronx, Brooklyn, all of it. It all kind of came out. But it's also the, you have so many like great museums in that area. So that's oftentimes probably why you have so many art teachers that are from a certain place. And in a way, kind of grow out from there. I'm next to Hoboken in New Jersey. We're right across from the Hudson. I do know where Hoboken is. So, but I would probably have forgotten Hoboken was in Jersey and not in New York. Because I haven't been up in a couple of years. When did we go to Brooklyn, babe?
Oh, it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
The Night Vale show?
Yeah. I don't even know. It was like, what, 5, 6 years ago?
I could look it up because
Yeah.
we have Instagram.
I'm just guessing.
Let's see. You said 5 or 6?
Yeah.
Let's see how accurate.
Okay.
Let's go into the bowels of my Instagram.
The detective is on the search. Technically, Hoboken should be in New York and not in Staten Island. Staten Island is more New Jersey than New Jersey.
Was it before we got the cats?
I get that joke so well. I think it was. I think it was.
My hair was still blue.
Yeah, your hair was blue. Was Maul? Maul was still alive.
Yeah.
Was Goose still alive? I don't think Goose was alive.
Maybe. No, I don't know.
We had cats and dogs. We still have cats. Different cats now.
One day I'll have a dog.
One day, my wife says she's going to have a birthday puppy.
Birthday puppy.
She says birthday puppy a lot because she in her heart, that's where it lives right now. One day it'll live in our house. One day it'll live in our house, but in the meantime, in her heart is where it resides at this moment.
I think I was still a beer buyer, so it had to be right back.
I think the funny thing about New York, New Jersey is in my mind, I don't remember where they are on the map exactly. Like I have a theory of what it looks like to with my kind of photographic memory of a map, but photographic memories lie a lot. Like they'll give you more creative. If you're a creative person, you'll like come up with all types of weird ideas of where places are, and then you realize you're like that is not what that is called. It is not called Terabithia. That doesn't make sense. What made you decide to move to Washington? I would move there to work for Bethesda, the gaming company. Okay, that's the dream job. My dad lives here in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, and he was very sick about 20 years ago. So I came up to help him with his business and take care of him a little bit. And then he got better, and I stayed. I grew up in DC in Maryland, and then I moved away. I went to school, and I traveled a bit, and then I eventually ended up back here. And it's been really well, actually. Um, the art scene has been really loving and accepting, and I've done a lot in those 20 years now. So
It had to be like 2018 or 2017.
2018, 2017. Yeah, I know it's pre-pandemic. I know that.
That was so long ago.
Yeah.
Almost was it? Almost 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Grew up in DC. Yeah. Yeah. I visited once. It was hot as hell by the White House. Yeah, the Spy Museum was S tier though. We went to the Spy Museum a while back. Once.
Because it was free.
Because it was free. I mean, that's always kind of the upside about the DC area. Like, a lot of museums are free.
No.
No?
Not free. I won something or I got a.
My wife won a contest, and so then we got a free trip. We got a free visit to the Spy Museum. It was interesting. Witchcraft. That's what she says. I heard, I read a thing online recently that said women are secretly spiders because they like to knit, which is hilarious to me. Yeah, no, I like the Smithsonian's though. We like to go to all the different Smithsonian's. We love these little. There's so many weird little museums, and when we went down there, what's the round museum called? The Hirshhorn. The Hirshhorn is probably my favorite. It's a, it is a museum that is built in a circle, and it goes up. It's got many layers. And when we went there, we saw Basquiat, and we saw Ushimos, and we saw Banksy, and a lot of other artists whose names I don't remember, and I'm sorry. Um, it was pretty great. I mean, we've gone there so many times now. There's the Hirshhorn, there's the Portrait Gallery. There's a few of them that are just really, I don't know, they're interesting. They're interesting museums. Some I will not lie and say that every museum is good. Some museums they have moments when they're a little boring. So you kind of have to just kind of accept that you're not going to love every museum piece you see. But it's fun. I think there's a lot of like really kind of fun and funky little bits to museums that people go to. To be honest, when I go to museums, I love looking at the marble sculptures and the armor pieces, the old relics from all the different civilizations of the past. We've gone and we've seen so many like weird, interesting little things. They had an entire one that was like scrolls from samurais, like the whole thing. They had a whole section that was just scrolls that they had drawn these intricate illustrations. It was almost like comic books for samurais. And it was just, but it was like from that time. I think it was from the Edo period. And it was just, I don't know, it was just very interesting. It was stuff that you wouldn't normally see. Like, I love a museum that like brings you an artwork that you're not typically exposed to. So you get to kind of see woodworking and see sculptures and see armor and see portraits and see lots of different versions of what is and what isn't and all that stuff. And typically they're not political, which is nice because those museums kind of suck sometimes. They get a little corny. Let me see. I feel like when you see something crafted by someone hundreds or thousands of years ago, it's a very special feeling. There's always an essence of their culture in society and all the works. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. I always think it's interesting to see the work that survives all these kind of time, all the time, and like society changing, and like those groups even disappearing from existence, and all these things. Like it's very different, and I kind of love that those things survive. So yeah, it's the gist of it. All right, I've been talking for almost 100 minutes, so my voice is starting to go, and I still gotta let this dry, and I'm probably gonna do some more layers eventually. But thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. If you guys get a chance and you watch this later, which a lot of you like to do apparently, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, tell a friend. I make art all the time. My name's Charles Blake. If you want, you can join my Patreon. I have a free section of my Patreon that's literally just for people to join. We have a book club. We share videos of artwork that I'm doing. There's like a little blog thing. There's also lots of other art that's actually made specifically just for those people. So, yeah, have a good night. I appreciate it. You're wonderful. I love our questions. We got to do this again sometime. So, until then, painter out. Ciao. Bye.